he wouldn't look us in the eye while having an interview with us. He would look around, who else is in the room, if I'm going to answer this correctly or appropriately, who's going to hear me.
The IndyCar NASCAR weekend at the Brickyard has been one of my favorites the last couple of years. I understand it may be going away, but futuristically thinking, how can we do an event, NASCAR and NHRA, or another NASCAR IndyCar event? Is that still on the mind for the future?
So for us, I talked about schedule variation. I thought the Indy weekend was a ton of fun, right? It's so cool for me on Saturday to go as a fan, right? And see, a doubleheader race, but IndyCar, NASCAR, and then another NASCAR race the next day. That's just really fun. See the different cars, see the different drivers and the race teams and the crossover that exists there. I think it's awesome. And motorsports needs to stick together, right? So we talk to the IndyCar guys all the time. We've partnered with NHRA to have Chicagoland Speedway, be a part of their schedule. Are there other opportunities for us with those two series or potential other series that we could race on back-to-back weekends or on the same weekend?
That, of course, is Steve Phelps, the president of NASCAR. You heard the majority of the interview last segment. We're going to discuss that coming up in the next few minutes. But first, this segment
No, go ahead. Sponsor.
But first, this segment brought to you by good friends at General Tire. Now through the end of October, buy a set of SUV, light truck, passenger tires, and get up to $100 back with a Visa prepaid card. Yep. Go to GeneralTire.com now through the end of October. Get up to $100 back with 4 new tires from General Tire. Crasher?
He just said he had fun at the NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader weekend. He got a chance to go as a fan. He and the executive branch of NASCAR talked to the folks at IndyCar a lot. So I think right there, he and we just solved the Texas Motor Speedway issue that we talked about at the top of this hour in NASCAR and IndyCar not being able to secure a proper date yet for their return to TMS in 2024, thanks to the Olympics kind of screwing up the month of August and therefore the trickle-down effect from there. Do your doubleheader weekend at TMS. If it's not going to come back to Indy, do it at TMS. Why not? Why not?
Statman, maybe that's going to be the out for IndyCar is to, and I know it's so hard for a lot of these old stalwarts in open wheel Statman is to give in to the stock car series known as NASCAR because they turned their nose up, down, sideways, whatever they could do back in the day. And then NASCAR took that little gap when CART and IndyCar split and took advantage of it. And now they get 3 times the ratings. Mm-hmm. So there's still some of those IndyCar guys that are in there, Statman, were those in particular, that were the cause of IndyCar's and open wheels demise.
How dare we do anything with NASCAR?
The worst thing, the absolute worst thing that any race promoter could do is listen to social media en masse.
Right.
If they would spend a little bit of time to scientifically isolate some people like Nielsen does with the ratings or any survey does, find some people that represent certain demography and stick with them. So you know who they are, you know the way they think, you know what they buy, you know what they watch. The worst thing you could do is get involved in the people in social media whose hair catches fire 4 times a day and base your promotion on them. The best thing he said in that entire soundbite was, "I had fun." Mm-hmm. And the people on social media think fun is a 4-letter word. They get all involved in everything else except enjoyment and fun. I think this guy, if he ignores them, they'll be much better off.
Mike Helton has been on this show a couple of times, and I'm not going to throw the guy under the bus, but I'm going to say, after speaking with Mike Helton a couple of times over the last 23 years and one time with Steve Phelps, I walked away from that interview knowing much more, at least where the executives and NASCAR stood, frankly, than I ever have in the previous 22 years, and really how they feel. And to stand next to someone that's warm-blooded and, like Statman says, enjoys racing, enjoys IndyCar and NASCAR together. I don't know if, to get back what Stat said last segment about the Bill France era, Big Bill France era, granted, it still permeates the hallways of the series, but with someone like Steve Phelps and his right and left-hand man, Steve O'Donnell, right. What they've done in the short amount of time to steer this legendary ship of NASCAR, celebrating their 75th anniversary, into the direction of, it's 2023. I don't know why I'm looking to the left, or I should be looking to the right. It's a different day, a different era, and we've got to get away from that dock of the old and set sail for somewhere else, man, because it's a different animal now. Something that we'll discuss second hour about IndyCar having to address issues such as that. But just Steve Phelps and NASCAR now, we would have we would have pre-show meetings about dealing with NASCAR in the past, many years ago, and it was painful. Well, so-and-so come on the air? Nope, they're afraid to come on. Nope, so-and-so won't let that person on. But Crasher, now it's wow, refreshing in NASCAR. I didn't think I'd utter those words.
Right. And I think Statman nailed it in the last segment as well. And you can see it again by that clip you just ran. Steve Phelps would look us in the eye. You brought up Mike Helton. The one thing that I came away with the very first time we interviewed Mike Helton, so we're talking circa 03-ish, 2003-ish, is that he would look around. He wouldn't look us in the eye while having an interview with us. He would look around. Who else is in the room? If I'm going to answer this correctly or appropriately, who's going to hear me? That kind of thing. No, Steve Phelps is like, my focus is on you. Whatever you're asking me, I will figure out a way to answer it as close to reality as I can. So, yeah, there's a big difference between the two. Big.
Crash, you hammered that nail so strongly. As a sports producer, you could tell when somebody you're talking to, the interviewee, is not paying attention. And they will look at you, you ask a question, you stick the mic in their face, and they fall back into their standard position. Oh, yes, I think if we have, and I don't know, and what else you want to ask me? And then, oh, I think this is, and I don't know. And a couple of times, even with people I like Scott Dixon, you ask them a question, and they answer whatever they want to answer. It's not the answer to your question. And an answer to a question can be no, or I don't want to tell you, or whatever. But don't spend a minute and a half telling me something that's not what I asked. But Phelps, you get the feeling that Phelps is not going to do that to you, that he's going to look you in the face, listen to your question, and he's going to find a way to answer it. And if he can't answer it, I have a feeling he'll say, I can't say.
Yeah, exactly. And for you guys listening to us, watching us right now, seriously, look at the drivers, look at the executives when they're being interviewed by anybody in motorsports. Heck, do this on news shows. And if they're not giving their complete focus to the interviewer, then something else is going on in their head, or they're trying to avoid part of the questioning. So it matters so much when the focus is there.
Watch SportsCenter one night and just look at the guys that you stick and ball guys. Kenny, you've talked to stick and ball guys, and you could tell they're not paying attention. They don't give a hoot about what you have to say. You stuck the mic and the camera in their face, and they'll say whatever they want to. I've taught them to do that.
So you're talking both sides of this equation.
If you don't like the question, answer your question. I've taught people to do that. So, yeah, I mean, but Phelps, I think, is a straight guy, and he's not somebody who's, I think, what's the thing they say, if somebody starts veering off to the left when they answer a question, they're lying. So just pay attention to what somebody says, and you'll know exactly whether or not they're paying attention and whether or not they respect you enough to look you in the eye and say yay or nay.
The accountability of, frankly, corporations now is light years above what we've had. Again, I keep using our tenure, 23 years, as the example, but accountability for NASCAR in particular is much different than it was, given the fact they've got a new contract negotiation. They got new contract negotiations going on for the TV contract that ends at 2024. Sponsorship isn't as easy to come by as it was 10, 15 years ago.
Not
so
even close.
Being transparent and upfront, way to go for these guys. Coming up next, Freak Nation, his name is Doug Coletta. 1,079 days since his last win. Well, since his last win prior to last Monday. He joins us next. Speed Freaks Pits and the Lucas Oil Studios.